Yep, good news came down the line. Y'all saw the instant reaction, and we got a special guest here on the Sooner or Later Sports Show. We've got a lot to talk about. That's Coop. I am Jay. Thank y'all for pulling up here on the YouTube channel and listening wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. While you're here, please wipe your feet, like, subscribe, rate, review, and give us those 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Let's give us 5 anyway, and gifted. So, yeah, I lost my mind a little bit earlier, so I had to go live first, but we've got to get everybody's reaction to this because guess what? It's over. It is done. The most important component to all of this stuff is locked up. We got Colin Kennedy here from Sooners Illustrated 247. CK, how you doing, my man?
I'm surviving, I'm alive, and this damn thing is over. I mean, I'm exhausted. I can't think straight. We just did our instant reaction, and I don't think that I strung one sentence together properly. But it's finally over. Excited to sit here, talk some ball with y'all. Thanks to everyone tuning in the chat. And down the tears in Oklahoma Sooner, folks. It's finally done.
Yeah, it's done. Coop, how you feeling, man? How are you? You didn't get to give us the instant reaction because you was in the streets being a parent. You was being a grown-up, and I was over here being a degenerate, hitting the refresh button nonstop, literally just doing that for like 3 days. How you feeling, man?
Man, it's crazy. Like, obviously, this is where I felt was happening based off of stuff that everybody, that we talked to. But in this era,
I wish it was, man.
Yeah.
It may be by the end of the show. You never know. You know what I mean?
Hey, listen, we might have to strike up an old chord with the old competitive depth game. So, but you guys already hit yours. But I'll just say this: it's like in this day and age, like the things that you know and the things that you hear sometimes can be so far apart, and so there's so much information out there, and then there's people who are trying to be funny and they're kind of trolling, and so a casual may see it and go, well, hold on a second. Really? Our offensive coordinator is going to leave and be the head coach now? So there's stuff like that. But it's like it's easier when it's like spring game and now you've got that pit in your heart for the next couple months until kickoff and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And that's kind of what I felt like over the past couple of days. It's like, man, just get this thing over with. Like, I think it would just be therapeutic for an entire fan base.
Yeah, I was feeling the need of ripping the Band-Aid. That's all I want. Just rip that thing off, get it done. But like you, CK, all of us have been hitting that refresh button. The information is flowing to you nonstop. I'm starting to get messages on the side. Coop was getting calls, text messages, voicemails. I think he had like 2 or 3 carrier pigeons show up too with information. It's like, who in the hell still using carrier pigeons? But I digress.
Who's cleaning up after that?
Who's cleaning up after this? Who's cleaning up all of these flowers? But I'm just glad now we got the quarterback in place. You got 2 wide receivers that committed today. And I'm going to be 100% honest. There was definitely no coincidence about that. Those dudes met probably John Mateer and said, yeah, I want that guy throwing me the ball. So, CK, I want to step back first before we jump into the Ben Arbuckle hire and all that stuff. Alabama to LSU, man. Did you still have hope in this defense after the Alabama performance and then the LSU deal?
Yes and no. I mean, what a tale of 2 games. I didn't even think that was going to be on the bingo card for tonight. Wow. I
had to hit you with an off-the-wall one.
I know. You've got me unprepared and on the spot, which is what a start to the show. Look, I'll say this. That Alabama showing was as impressive of a defensive performance that I had seen at Oklahoma in a very long time. I mean, when you consider the context, not just the opponent, the on-field stuff, but everything that had gone into that game. I mean, that was the first game for me that it felt like Oklahoma didn't have a chance to win. And they did because of that defense. The turnaround at the LSU game was startling, but you see the vision. And I've said it all season long. I've taken a lot of what the defense has done poorly with a grain of salt because of how poor things were offensively. it's really hard in today's world of college football to be elite defensively consistently. It's really, really hard to be elite when you've got almost no help from your offense. And so it seems like that won't necessarily be the case going into 2025. We still got to find out how they're going to retool the rest of that unit. But, man, what a defensive stretch that was. I totally forgot that was even a thing.
Yeah, my hope and my excitement for the future went up after the Bama game. Now, granted, LSU didn't look as promising, but LSU was actually smart. They recognized that you do need to make adjustments. You can't just try to run down their throat and bogart them nonstop. Make them think. Alabama thought they could be one-dimensional and win the game. Granted, I get why. I mean, when your offense doesn't have a pulse, sure, you should be able to go out there and just, do one thing and win. But we showed both sides. You could run the ball and was able to somewhat pass the ball. But now we've been able to move into a new stratosphere of football. We got an offensive coordinator that runs a variation of the air raid, and he says he has 4 different variations, which I appreciate. Now he brought his quarterback with him. Coop. The defense looks like it's going to be the same, if not better. Is that a true statement?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think. Like at the beginning of the year, I said, what's nuts is the more athletic people on this defense are the people waiting in the wings. Like, that from an athletic standpoint, like these are higher recruited guys just across the board. A staff, put together this dream by recruiting these guys. And so you go out and again, there's a couple things that, I just got another note. There's a couple of now this is going to be tough tonight. Okay, so you got a couple of offensive pieces going in right now to go after this defense. You're still going to go after a couple of defenders, I believe. You're still looking at maybe a defensive back and maybe an edge or an interior line guy just for the depth portion of it, so you can run that hockey lineup change whenever you need to. But this is just going to help. The difference in we saw for years, and guys tell me if I'm crazy here, but like when you've got a really, really good offense and a dog crap defense, like the offense doesn't really get winded. They still are calling the plays and they're still dictating everything. So like there's not that correlation of one side of the ball getting drained if the defense is just going out there and standing for a few seconds while they run on air. But like with this defense this year, they had to grind so much, and I mean there was literally times to where Venables was saying like for us to be in this game, we are going to have to score. We're going to have to cause something right up on the goal line. And we saw it against Temple. And so, you bring in an offense to go with this defense. And it, like I said, it doesn't have to be a top 10 offense. Can it be? Let's go see. But like, it doesn't have to be a top 10 offense. If you get, I mean, even our offense from last year, on with this defense, it can become scary.
The question is, I just want it to be competent. That was the only thing I asked for. I didn't really care if it was anything more or less than that. If you give me competence, the defense was doing just enough to finish all of that. So, CK, looking at this, so now you bring in John Mateer. We've got that commitment. We've all instant reacted. We've gotten excited about it. But now you've got the other pieces on there. These 2 wide receivers that came in, Giovanni Gibson, as well as Keontrez Lewis. Keontrez is the old head. He played at what? Was it UCLA?
UCLA, I think.
It's his fourth
school. No, hold up. Before we talk about that, somebody had a stat that like 50 or 60% of these kids in the portal this time have been to multiple schools.
Well, you saw like the Key Lawrence one where it had Tennessee to Oklahoma to, was it UCLA also?
If somebody else was collecting jerseys like Shaq was in the NBA and had to get the rainbow going, I can't think of who it was, but they had like 7 or 8 schools on there, and I'm like,
I'm sorry, but nothing tops Bear Alexander in Penn State jersey. with a Georgia tattoo on his arm and a USC profile picture. Nothing will ever top that.
That is
in the history of college football and the transfer portal.
That's your definition.
I've never seen anything like that before, man.
He has a Georgia tattoo.
And this is what I was thinking, Coop. I was like, the choice to flex that arm specifically. If you go with the other arm, you're in the clear.
Right.
He flexed the one with the Georgia logo, man. Let's get our awareness up a little bit. Help yourself out, man.
So, anyway, back to it. Lewis, he played at Southern Illinois, and he brings a veteran presence. He's a big body with 6'3". We got what? Is that 2 6'3" plus receivers we're bringing in now?
So far.
Are we literally trying to have only receivers at that height and up going forward? Is that now the goal, CK? Because it makes sense in the SEC.
Listen, I said it a couple weeks ago. I thought it was pretty telling that almost exclusively Oklahoma was going after receivers in the portal that were 6'2" and above. No one really underneath that metric was being pursued by the Sooners. Isaiah Satania is now on that list since that time, but that's a different skill set. You're talking about someone who can absolutely take the top off of the defense. Mm-hmm. I think it told you at the time a lot about what they thought of Deion Burke's situation. And I think what it really tells you now that some of these dominoes are falling, they really wanted to shore up the perimeter of this offense going into the air raid principle scheme. I still want to emphasize the fact that I don't think Oklahoma's getting ready to throw the ball around the yard 72 times, Patrick Mahomes style. But when you have someone like Deion Burks, you have some of these younger wide receivers who can operate out of the slot. They had to get more experienced, more size, and just overall talent on the outside. And you can see the clear effort here. Keontez Lewis, 6'2", 190. I've heard he may be a little bit bigger than that now. And then Javonte Gibson is someone, I don't know about y'all, I really like him specifically. I cut on the tape the other day, and the platform that I use, it's kind of cool. You can sort specifically by play. So I watched all of his deep balls from this past season. And I'm sitting there going, this guy would be making these plays if he were playing at Oklahoma. Yeah. It's about proper utilization. But, man, I saw someone in the live chat. I just want to see him throw the ball. I was telling Callaway earlier today when we were doing some prep, you just didn't have that this season. Not even an ounce. I could barely tell you them throwing the ball downfield consistently at all in 2024. These receivers they get today, John Mateer is huge. Ben Arbuckle is huge. But this portal window was almost going to be about just to those moves, how they address the receiver room. And with these two guys now into the fold, I really like the direction that they're heading, and I don't think that they're done anytime soon either.
It doesn't feel like it. It feels like the wide receiver room is definitely the one thing that is probably the larger focus. Like, we knew we needed a quarterback, right? We needed an additional set. And I want to make sure that I clear this up in the chat. I cleared this up when I went live on my instant reaction. This is not a knock to Hawkins. Hawkins is a true freshman. Him and Steele Wiesel are the only quarterbacks in the room right now. Mm-hmm. And you probably need to have some more bodies in there, at least something with experience, just in case. You don't want to go in there only with Jet New as your true freshman behind a true sophomore. That's how you end up where you are today. You want to make sure you have additional. But at the same time, Mateer walks in with 2 years of experience in this offense. Remember, he sat behind Cam Ward for 2 years. 1 year with Eric Morris up there at OC. He bounced and went to North Texas. Then Arbuckle takes over. So he had 2 years there in Arbuckle's system. All he can do is teach everybody around him the game. Kind of like Jeff Levy with Dylan Gabriel. That's what I see with this scenario. Plus, at the same time, this dude is considered the best dual threat quarterback in the league in the country right now. So, yeah, if you can get number one dude, like he's number one on everybody's charts in player rankings in the transfer portal. So, yes, if you can get him, you do it.
And I'll go even further than this, Jay. It's better than Levy Gabriel because Levy Gabriel had a gap in between. And so, I mean, they just literally were, probably last time they saw before it became official on our side. I mean, the last thing he probably said was, talk to you soon. I mean, it's not like he's got any gap. So, and I love Michael Hawkins also, but there is a significant advantage when you know the playbook. Like when you know the playbook and you've been, Ben Arbuckle knows everything about John Mateer. He knows what he's comfortable with. If we really just got to get you back in a rhythm, he knows what he can go to there. And though, yeah, it's on film for the defense, but I mean, that's how offensive coordinators who are competent at their craft do it. Is you set up stuff, you play for the moment. You're not like, this isn't stuff you scripted out. This isn't like, hey, let's go with no plan and no identity. So yeah, I don't think I've been. Last year we were pretty excited about Dom Williams, and I still think that was a turning point for the optics of the in the country for OU. But I mean, I'm sitting here looking at the SEC. Mike and Big Shane are talking about OU right now on their live, and it says, I think the Sooners upgraded a quarterback in a big way, landing the Washington State QB changes the narrative around OU football. So they know what the defensive narrative is. Now all of a sudden, oh God, what happens if they put an offense with that defense? And now the teams are going to – it's going to change. You'll see some Vegas movement here soon.
Yeah, and by the way, to add to that really quick, Corey Robinson, the lineman from Georgia Tech, just tweeted out he will be visiting the University of Oklahoma tomorrow. Mm-hmm. He was just at Arkansas, and he's coming to visit. Yeah. Now that we've got the main guy in the boat, you're going to start seeing everything else come together. That's what's most important. But, yeah, it does change the entire narrative. To me, going into next season, all the concerns around offense, to me, kind of get washed away because you've actually got two dudes that have done this before. We have actual data seeing them do it. I mean, Cam Ward was a Heisman finalist mainly because of the 2 years he did at Washington State with two different offensive coordinators. The game continued with Mateer. So I think that helps us a lot. And if the defense stays intact, which it looks like, should be special. Question on that, though. CK, all of this transfer portal stuff has been wild. But I haven't got a chance to talk to you about the class that just came in. I know that you are close in the area. You got a chance to get down to Louisville. You got to see Fasusi and all of them.
Yeah.
How stressed were you about that situation?
Man, that's a great question. I have to really choose how I answer this. Mm-hmm. I know that there was a lot of conversation out there about never in doubt, never in question for Michael Fasusi. And I'm not here to deny that.
Yep.
I can only tell you what I know. And I had some phone calls that morning that made me go, oh no, this is at least going to get interesting. I obviously can't dive too much into what took place, but when I got to that cafeteria, I had it on pretty good authority it was going to be Oklahoma, but I knew Texas and A&M. I mean, at one point, I was getting off the phone with somebody, and they were getting on a call with Texas again right after my phone call with them. It was right up until the buzzer. I think Michael Fasusi, I mean, by the way, guys, like, what a talent acquisition stretch for this staff. When you think about Mateer, Michael Fasusi, some of these huge decisions that have now kind of gone in their favor. It's been a wild month or so when you're talking about guys that are foundational pieces of the program, guys that they had to get. So Michael Fasusi is the kingpin for obvious reasons. I love this class. I think it's a really nice freshman group, and I think it really supplements what they're getting ready to do in the transfer portal and what they've already done now to this point with guys like Mateer and some of those receivers into the mix.
If you look at just that track record, as you just pointed out, gosh, from Fasusi, Fogier, up to Mateer. Yeah, this staff has actually put together a very nice look. Now the question is, continue to be wide receiver. We just saw 5 dudes bounce into the portal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot if you really think about it. But Jaden Gibson looked like he's intact. Deion Burks came through and changed his number. I think he of course he was waiting for Nick to leave so that he can get that number back, right? You know, he rocks a number 4 chain, so it made me feel like, oh, he really wanted his number back. So he's like, you know, Nick, go ahead and leave so I can get my number back. You can kind of see that with him. I'm not concerned about Emmett Jones, and this is my theory. Tell me if I'm crazy. I put this video out about a week ago because everybody was freaking out before everything was going down. And if you notice the guys that left, only one of them would technically be considered a guy that Emmett Jones had brought in, which was Brennan Thompson. Andrew Anthony came in the day that he got announced to get the job. So I don't know if there was some conversations there. I'm going to pretend like they weren't because I don't want people to be thinking about tampering. But all the dudes basically kind of left were not his guys. Gibson stuck around because you could see that he improved with EJ. Burks was one of his recruits. It kind of feels like he was ready to, that the fight to keep all those players weren't as high for him because he was looking to kind of transition into the guys he really would like. Do I sound crazy?
No, not at all. I think it's the simple nature of the situation. Like, let's just be real here. They had to get guys who could be on the field consistently. At the end of the day, your best ability is availability. And I talked about it at the time a little bit. I cannot sit here and act like losing those guys isn't significant. I think Nick Anderson is a Sunday player. And I think people forget when that guy is healthy, people had him as a projected first-round pick, and I was totally on board. That guy is a freak show. Jaleel Farouk, I mean, a guy that people outside of Oklahoma's fan base have talked to me about how much that they love him. He is someone who gave his all to the program. And when you see a guy like that walk out the door, it hurts.
It does.
But OU had to go into this offseason knowing they at least had a shot at keeping an entire receiving core together throughout the entirety of the 2025 season. Because this is what it really comes down to. If you're going to invest all this money into riding the ship on offense, it can't be dead weight. And unfortunately, that kind of materialized in 2024. A ton of guys with a ton of value who could contribute at a high level were on the bench. And you can't control that. But going into 2025, knowing everything that's at stake for Oklahoma, like they had to have receivers who would be able to help them and that they could rely on a week-to-week basis, because that hadn't really been the case for a while. And so I like the way that they address the situation. I think that there's no bad blood really between any of these guys. I know that Emmett Jones has handled himself well behind the scenes to this point, and I think Emmett Jones is a big reason why they're getting some of these portal wide receivers to come into the program. I think you made a really good point. A lot of this wasn't really Emmett Jones to begin with, and he can only do what he can actually accomplish. You're kind of seeing the fruits of his labor come together, and whether it's winning the Deion Burks sweepstakes in-house to now seeing some of this turnover go into their favor, I think Oklahoma's looking a lot better and more reliable at the receiver position, which had to happen before 2025.
That's a fair point. Got a couple of super chats we're going to jump into real quick. Hey, COGBIJ, thanks for the $2. Any chance on getting the Branch brothers? Look, you know they're expensive. We all know that. And I do know that Mateer follows them. But I ain't going to be dumb enough to actually believe that there's a chance of going after both of them. Even though I don't think it's far-fetched. I don't think it's a chance. Coop, you think we got a chance of getting them?
I don't think we shake that tree. You know, I was waiting for that. Don't think we shake that one. I just think that this staff is going after some hungry people who want to come in and want to build something together. And you know, I think that we're willing to spend some money on some guys. But you know, if you're going to be asking for $2-3 million and, you know, a bunch of promises and stuff like that, that's just probably not it. So I don't know what their intentions are. I do know that there is a chance. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
I think,
CK?
The other part of this that isn't getting talked about a lot, but is very critical when you're talking about the Branch brothers, and I've talked about this with folks out in the personnel landscape in college football. You're not only committing, like Coop said, a lot of money, a lot of resources, a ton of promises to these players, you are committing a spot to the other brother as well, who is a safety. And I'm not here to take a shot at him, but in the era of cut down rosters, committing a scholarship spot to a duo, you really have to like the players. And I think in the case of Oklahoma, I was telling someone earlier today, they love that safety room. They love that safety room. Are you willing to shake that thing up and spend a spot on someone like that? I don't think they're willing to risk someone like a Reggie Powers, a Jaden Hardy, a Michael Boganowski. I think they're really happy with the players that they've brought in. And when you factor in everything else, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now. That's how.
Yeah, because you take one, you got to take two. And you said it perfectly, CK. Going back through all 8 of them we have in that safety room, you don't want any of them. Because if Robert Spears-Jennings comes back, him and Peyton Bowen, right? Then the 3 that just recently came with Powers, Boganowski, as well as Hardy, and then 7 technically. And then you got Wimberly as well as Amarion Robinson, little man. You don't want to break that. You don't want to. That's a haul. And I don't think Zachariah's brother is at that caliber. Can't even play corner. Can you move him to corner? I don't think so. So I wouldn't touch that.
And the other part of this, too, is the cheetah spot's pretty much occupied as well. Like, if Kendall Dolby's coming back and you got Omasigo, who they love, what do? I don't think you can make a move considering the current status on the defensive side of the ball, especially when we know for a fact they are a package. That's a non-negotiable for them.
Exactly. Another $2 from Lee Bird. Thanks a bunch for that. BV's minimum wins to keep his job next season. Woo! That's a spicy one. Well, it's got to be at least. It's got to be at least 8 or 9 now at this point.
I mean, granted, we've never seen a season like this season at a single program that I can remember. I don't see it happening again. But I think that if something like this year were to happen, like that might be the only thing. But yeah, I mean, I think at this point, you need to either have 8 wins or you get some kind of a screw job that only gives you 7. But I mean, I think it's 8 wins because let's be honest. I mean, if we had, if we were so close, you win against Missouri and then, I don't know, you do anything against Ole Miss, this is an 8-4 football team. And so it's like, think of with this season and what we did, how much just that little bitty jump we needed on offense. So if the offense come out and produces and the defense is balling out, I think people are going to be upset if it's not a playoff appearance.
Yeah, with our schedule, 9 wins get you in the playoffs. Because it's just a flip of last year. They will still, unfortunately, quote unquote, inflate a lot of the teams SEC will go up against. But if we show up with the same defense and its offense is actually competent, a competent offense wins the Tennessee game. You know, a competent offense probably closes Missouri. Actually does close Missouri because that I'm still anyway. But that's 8 wins right there. That's just 2. And if I throw in one wild card, don't turn the ball over in the first 5 minutes 3 times against South Carolina, you might have 9. That's 9. That's a possibility to go into that's a fight into the playoffs.
I really struggle with this, man. I really do.
It's hard.
Because I think 8 wins definitely gets it done. People probably won't like this. I think 7 should get it done, depending on how it looks. Because here's what you got to consider. Michigan is coming to town. It's not a cupcake in the non-con anymore. The Wolverines are coming with old Bryce Underwood, and I know they're in the portal market as well for a quarterback, depending. Yeah, they are heavily involved in the portal market. And so you've got a Michigan game now on the schedule. Yes, it's at home, but Michigan's going to be a lot better than what they were this past year. And by the way, that's also a situation where they were good on defense and not so good on offense. It's typically easier to fix that offensive side of the ball. Michigan could be much improved. I was talking about this too, guys. Like, if you really think about it too, why I say 7 wins depending on how it looks. This is not only that same brutal schedule now with a more difficult non-con slate, but you're getting a lot of these teams at a time right now where you just don't want to draw them. I mean, South Carolina is going to go into next year with a potential Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback in Lenora Sellers. That guy is a stud. Garrett Nussmeier's coming back for LSU. You got to deal with that dude again. You let off the show asking me about what LSU did to the defense, and their quarterback's coming back, right? Going to Tennessee. Obviously, Oklahoma has done well, all things considered, but man, you know they're going to be fired up on Rocky Top for that game. And
they want revenge for Baker coming back. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. And depending on what happens with Jalen Milroe, I don't think he's solidified his status yet either. That's a road trip, by the way.
That is Tuscaloosa. Yeah, you're right.
Look, it's from and if it all goes well, it should be a 8-win caliber team. But as we know in college football, your record isn't always what you actually are. And that's where I have a hard time on this, guys. Like it's very much a debate for me.
No, that's a fair point. I'm in the camp with you. I think 7 should be able to get it done, but I think the expectation is going to be 8. And honestly, that Michigan game is the only reason why I think 7 helps. But you're right. With Bryce Underwood coming in, the good thing is he's a true freshman, and you'll see him within 2 weeks of the season. That helps. That leans in the Oklahoma favor.
Assuming he's the starter, by the way. Assuming, if they get a portal guy, I don't know.
Well, and that's kind of the next question. Who's going to be the portal guy that they're going to even go after and get? Because to me right now, if Miami's smart, they go get Fernando Mendoza. He's born and raised in Miami. So you probably should go and do that. CK's getting a message. Somebody just shot him a line and said something's about to happen.
No, I was looking because I was told by somebody who I had heard Michigan might be going after. I just don't know if the guy's been in the portal yet.
See,
I don't think he is.
That's where all that tampering comes in. You're trying to figure out who the heck's being tampered with and who ain't. We don't know.
Hey,
we don't know.
I've got something for you. Somebody asked me about this, and this is not inside information or anything like that, but what if Quinn hops in the portal? And because how do you stick it to Michigan? I mean, how do you stick it to Ohio State if you go play at Michigan?
What if he goes back to Ohio State? No, I'm playing around here.
They kind of need. I mean, they just lost Aaron Nolan. Will Howard ain't really been it. I don't know what Julian Sayan's doing yet. He's still young. Yeah. That's not out of the realm of possibilities as well. And they need to find a way to beat Michigan because they lost 4 times. This year was unexcusable, but I digress.
Yeah, I think Quinn's going to the draft, to be clear. It's just, you never know with this stuff, man. Like the amount of money sometimes getting thrown around in college football these days, I never thought I'd see the day. I really didn't.
Yeah. I didn't either until I saw that lawsuit stuff start to happen. And then we know that once the new administration gets into the White House, their first goal is to fix college football. That's what a few of the politicians have said. And this is the 1 year that all of this shit's going to be wild. It's got to be, because now you got the money to go ahead and do something. So it's kind of fascinating to see that everybody's willing to throw all this money out there, and they're front loading all of it. So most of it shows up before July 1st, when the 105-man rosters are required, which is kind of interesting. Kevin, thank you so much for the $10. Tanya, thank you for the 5 as well. Says OU and Oklahoma came through in this one. This game changer. They did. They came through, fixed everything. But I got a couple people with some good comments here. John says 8 wins would be great. I bet. And Kevin also points out, if the Oklahoma if the offense matches the defense, that's 10 wins. I don't see why it wouldn't be. We're bringing back roughly a good 75% of your defensive production, because I think so with Stutz gone, Bowman gone, Dejon Terry gone, and Woody gone, Woolard gone. Ford gone. Oh, never mind. You're probably losing about 50% of your production.
You're losing some dudes. Like
you are losing some
guys
dudes now,
who
good calculations.
mean a lot to that system.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think a lot of it has to do with Dominic Williams, because what Dominic does, someone asked me about this the other day. I had someone call me and go, "Hey, do you think that the Dominic Williams stuff was worth the on-field product?" And I was like, go watch him play. In my opinion, a technique on the defensive line he wasn't meant to play. I thought he was coming to Oklahoma originally as like a 3-tech. He's played like nose for them. And there were moments, Texas game, I want to say the Ole Miss game, where he was blowing people up.
Yep.
As a true inside guy. I have been stunned with what he's accomplished on the interior. Here's where I go back and forth, and I want to add some statistical context to this. On one hand, I look at this and I go, okay, like John Mateer is, in my opinion, one of the best players in all of college football. I know I got some grief for that. I think that's an idiotic take by people who won't admit it. This is a number one player in points responsible for in the nation, and was pretty sizably ahead of Cam Ward, who I believe was at number 2. Yep. He averaged 22 plus points per game contributed on average by himself. Okay. Number 3, guys, this to me was the biggest statistic that I saw. The year that Cam Ward was the quarterback and John Mateer was the backup, Washington State was number 38 in scoring offense. When Mateer took over, they went from 38th with Cam Ward to 11 nationally. Mateer at the helm, they dang near got in the top 10 in what matters most. Are you scoring points? But on the flip side, guys, and this is why I'm just presenting this for the takes here, you have all of that from your quarterback, but you're coming from such a low point. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, matching the defense is quite the standard to reach when you've got guys that are coming in to elevate the standard, but you're starting from a low point, right? And then the other part of this is you have to assume everything pans out together. With all these transfers coming in, it could take a little while for it to flow. And
that's true.
I don't know what that looks like the first few weeks of the season, especially against someone like Michigan. Like, it may be a little funky out of the gate. We know, like, I always say that Oklahoma offensive lines don't really come together until after the Texas game.
Yeah.
That seems like a tradition when it comes to Bill Beatonbow. I kind of feel bad for him on that. It's everybody, of course, attacks him for it because he does that. And it's I guess the chemistry piece. But the good thing is we're bringing back a lot of people that's played together for at least a year. They're starting to understand each other. And got to be healthy. That's the key thing. But this picture that Mateer put up here, everybody's paid attention to that bottom left corner. June 12th, 2020. This man was in high school. This is when he did his visit to Oklahoma. This is when he had interest in playing at Oklahoma. Remember, he's from Little Elm, so he's not very far. This is, I mean, if I'm correct, him and Jackson Arnold have the same quarterback coach. So, or trainer or something. So, this is him driving up to Oklahoma to take a picture because, you know, he would love to have come here. But he wasn't recruited. He wasn't highly recruited by a lot. Took his talents to Washington State, and then he, of course, showed up and showed out. Now, you said this, CK. You mentioned this name earlier, and a lot of people are throwing this out there. A lot of people are saying they see a little Baker in this. I'm not saying he's Baker Mayfield, but they see a little Baker. I kind of see it, too. I've been watching a lot of his tape. I'm going to play some stuff in a second, but Coop, I'm going to pass to you first. Should I be slapped?
I mean,
can I be slapped? Should I?
I think, you know, number one is the guy does have, I mean, he does look like, as far as the gunslinger, just go out and just like, that's he's passionate about it. You know, and some of the throws, I mean, like that one right there, it reminds me of Hollywood Brown. You know, I can go through this one right here. Looks like he does a play fake to Joe Mixon and throws it out to CeeDee Lamb. It kind of looks the same, right? But at the same time, like I saw a tweet, and, you know, shout out to the guy who did it. But it was like, every single quarterback going back to Nate Hibble, and their OU comp is Baker Mayfield. And so except for Kyler, but it's like we've all wanted the Baker. But I think what gets us jazzed up about this is you see him willing to go out there and put everything on the line. There's one, is it this one right here? No, it's not that one. There's one where he gets like hit in the legs. But I mean, dude ran for, 28 touchdowns, and threw for 29. I mean, something crazy. But I mean, he was responsible for like 41, 42 touchdowns, right?
Something like that.
So,
but,
ran 29 touchdowns through the air. Yeah, ran for 15. And 44, I believe, total was the number. 44. Yeah.
Okay. He ran for 15 more. 44 total. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, he's like, what is it here? He was the leading rusher on the team. He also was sacked 31 times and accomplished all the passing feats that he did. So it's not like you're like, well, yeah, but wait till he gets here because this offensive line is going to struggle a little bit. Well, his offensive line was struggling this year too, and he still put up all those numbers.
They really were.
Yeah. I look at him and I see the Baker, not necessarily because, 6'1", feisty guy, right? That you turn on the film, and you're like, oh, he's got grit and toughness, and he's hardy. No, it's like
moxie.
The guy is compact. Baker was really compactly built. You can see the strength in his legs, like the lower body base has a lot of foundational strength to it. And then, like, even in my opinion, you watch the tape of him, and Baker, I always laughed because he would run, and he was a good athlete, just like John is, but he'd have this kind of awkward running style where the arm would kind of swing low. Like the forearm stayed low at all times. It was never up here. And John kind of does the same thing where he kind of like almost paddle boats his way through the defense.
Look at that right there. He's in it, yeah.
Yep. That to me though is what makes John special. I watch all these cut ups, this tape, the highlight reels. The change of direction ability is what makes him Baker Mayfield, whatever else. I'm really interested to see what this offense looks like because you've seen what Oklahoma can do with someone who's an elite dual threat, whether it be Kyler or even Jalen. And it's been shown, proof of concept, Arbuckle knows how to capitalize on this guy's strengths. So he's a really interesting case study. And yeah, the Baker Mayfield comps are easy, but I personally am very interested to see how he stacks up with some of these other storied transfer quarterbacks we talk about in Oklahoma's lore.
That is the thing for me there. Where is he going to end up in this? Like I can't put a prediction out there now. I need to, of course, see him play before we get to that point, but he has an opportunity to be up there if he plays like he played at Washington State here. And it's funny because I've had so many people say, oh, well, look at the competition he's playing against. And this is that and the other. Saw Cam Ward pull up that same stuff the next year whenever he left Washington State after 2 years. He did it there in the ACC. We've seen quarterbacks in the SEC do this. I mean, honestly, Peyton Thorne does this all the time. He runs a lot for Auburn. The one big thing with him is just the decision-making in the end never ends up being the decision-making you're supposed to do. John Mateer makes the right decisions and turn the ball over a whole bunch. He can end up doing it better than what Thorne was doing when it's come to running around. So that's kind of the thing to think about when it comes to talking about Mateer. That's why I wanted to bring the Baker comparison since everybody's talking about it. I'm not saying he's him, but at the same time, the similarities are stuff that are very glaring, especially the running style. Because you're right. When he gets that arm going, I'm just like, God, I hate when Baker, because I'm a Bucs fan, I hate when Baker does it. I'm like, dog, somebody going to punch that out, but they never do. He seems to always hang on to the ball, but now he's going to actually have people to throw the ball to. I know that we have, hopefully, it's another set of wide receivers pull up or whatnot. So Giovanni Gibson, I wanted to go back to him because I watched a lot of that UAPB tape. And like you said before, he'd be catching his stuff if he was here. Like, he's fast. He's got a big frame. He's young, too. I think that's my favorite part is he's young at 6'3". But the last dude we had from UAPB that came through here and did some damage was Bradley, right? We've seen it. The top receiver in the SEC is a dude that played at Texas A&M Commerce. Andrew Armstrong at Arkansas. He didn't have the most touchdowns, but he had the most yards. I don't think people recognize that if the talent. Let's talk about this, CK. This is what I want to ask. I want to ask you and Coop this because I saw somebody post this, and the way, because you evaluate players, this was intriguing. They said that the reason why a lot of coaches will look at guys at a lower level with production a little bit more than maybe a P4 guy without it is because that production can translate a little bit better up than a dude that didn't produce in P4. Is that crazy?
Yeah, no, it's not crazy at all. It's kind of the evaluation method in the portal. I tell our board all the time, if you want to know why all these programs are getting FCS and G5 players who have produced a lot, it's because they're way more available than all of these Power 4 backups that are supposedly going into the portal and widely wanted. If a guy is leaving a Power 4 program, folks, and he didn't play a lot, there has to be a reason for that. There has to be. Now, it doesn't have to be a bad reason. Maybe guys were just better than him or whatever else, but that is part of the evaluation process. If he couldn't play for school X, why can he play for me? Whereas when you have some of these guys with proven tape, production, and the experience level, the reliability, they've taken a beating at the collegiate level, so you know they can kind of withstand it while producing at a high level. Not only are they more plentiful and available, but man, you're going to be way more optimistic about relying on a guy who's been there, done that, and has been leaned on in those biggest moments, rather than someone you're kind of taking a flyer on from the backup ranks somewhere else. So
yeah,
there are a lot of differing opinions on this. And Coop, I would be interested to hear your take. But for me, it's number one, common sense. There's way more of these guys out there, folks.
There's so many.
There's just naturally going to be more guys looking to elevate their play rather than go somewhere else or drop down. And those are the players that you're going to be interested in because you have seen it with your own eyes. You know what it's supposed to look like whenever they get to your campus.
Look, get past this to you, Coop, in a second. I also wanted to add in that the best point you made there is readily available, because if a dude is very productive at their school, his school's probably going to try to pay him to get him to stay. Like, if Nick didn't get hurt and he played all season, down the list of all those receivers, they'd probably still be on the roster this year. Them leaving is more of a, we'll have to replace that production. Wait. Yeah, we got to replace that with production. We didn't have any production last season, so it kind of happens. Real quick, Kevin, thank you so much for the $4.99. Sark is a regular season coach, can't coach big games. I don't know if BV can either. LSU owned us, and we owned Bama. Look, it was just kind of a craziness with that. And he also adds $5 here for Burks is going to have a monster year, and the receivers we have committed are going to be great. I like to see a stud online. And lastly, he asks, how much money do we have left? I heard we started $17 million. Wide receivers are easy to come by. I don't know what the NIL looks like, to be honest. Rumor has it we had 17. I've heard 25. I've heard that this was the 1 year that we were going to spend probably closer to 30. I don't know. I'm not even going to even jump into that because no one's going to ever give you a straight answer. Everybody's going to look at you and be like, oh, it's this number. It's that number. But anyway, Coop, how'd you feel about, what do you think about that theory I had that someone had pointed out to me before?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes time to a wide receiver, like, it doesn't matter, what the competition is that he's running against. Like, listen, I was dead wrong about the guys that Texas brought in. I did not think that, the two guys that they brought in, just Golden, and I didn't think Bond was going to, be anything. And listen, they didn't have somebody who was being spoken for on the Blitnikoff, but it is one of those things where I just want to. I want to see people who know how to go out there and run a route. The only thing I don't see in his film is tenacity on the blocking stuff, and that's something that it's mandatory. It's a non-negotiable on this team. So, but what did we say from blocking standpoint? Just go out there and at least get in someone's way. Just go out there and don't try to blast them and whiff, and don't try to do too much. I mean, just do enough, do your job. And so, man, I love Javonte Gibson. I hate it for Toby Rowan because he's going to have J Gibb and J Gibb, and so we're going to have to come up. We got Jalen Williams for the Thunder, so we've got to come up with something here. I don't know because I know Jay Gibbs probably got some kind of a nickname on the team, but I digress. So you got these two big guys. You still have Kearney. You still have Carry-On. You've got some big bodies, and then you also have, a few smaller guys. So I would rather go out and get somebody because kind of like you guys were talking about is if we go out and get somebody from North Carolina who had 11 catches for 201 yards and a touchdown this year, like, again, if you weren't starting at North Carolina, like, what are you doing here? Like, why? Like, yeah, there's nobody in front of you, but at the same time, like, you got to kind of look at those situations. Who's out in front of them? Is it Ohio State? Because if you're like the fifth guy on the bench at Ohio State, sure, I'll sure as hell take you because you're most likely a 5-star or a high 4-star receiver.
Yeah.
Let me ask y'all a question. Coop, I'm going to kick it to you first. Maybe this proves my point.
Okay.
Who are you more excited about? Giovanni Gibson from the SWAC or Luke Baklenko from Stanford? Who's from the Power Four, by the way.
And so I say this is I feel like the wide receivers this year didn't have. I'll just go this way. I think the Walter Rouse thing makes that harder because you're like, we just saw a proof of concept. Walter Rouse come in. He was a solid offensive lineman the whole entire year. He had his, one shining moment in the Texas game where he blocks two guys with one with each hand, and like that's what we remember from him. But he wasn't. Like, he wasn't an all-pro. He wasn't an all-conference or anything like that. So watching this offensive line, like, I'm one that believes that we really didn't need anybody else. I think that with the development, the guys that are coming through. So I'm excited more about this guy. And I don't think that the Travis Hunter comp, hey, he also came out of an HBCU. Like, I don't really like that because Travis Hunter was a 5-star. Yeah. Was probably supposed to go to Florida State without Deion. But this is a guy who's gone out there, and it's not like he had 2 games in the season where he had like 12 catches for 211 yards and did nothing against anybody else. Like, it was consistent production.
Ooh, that one is a tough one though, because Baklenko gets me excited. Walter Rouse situation, while at the same time provides us with some additional depth with that's got experience, a lot of snaps. But it's nothing against him. I'm really excited about seeing Fasusi and Foger and see if they can actually work their way into the rotation, right? That kind of got my attention a little bit more. I think I'm more excited about Giovanni because we've been seeing these wide receivers from like the SWAC find their way up into the P4 and do stuff. I mean, heck, Colorado had a few dudes. That makes you like, okay, if you find the right ones with enough dog in them, might be worth it. Plus, he also comes from the same city as Keon Coleman. And I know all them dudes is crazy over there in Louisiana. So,
oh, yeah.
That's what makes it tough. So, I'm going to say Giovanni because I know that he's going to be a dog. But Baklenko probably going to take some refinement, but I think he'll be solid contributor. I think Giovanni can end up being one of the top receivers in the SEC.
And guys, let's not act like you can go up and down NFL rosters and find top-notch wide receivers that weren't P4 guys. And not only today, but 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Cooper Kupp. There's all these different guys who are out there. I mean, let's be honest. Like, we just need the guy to come in here and run the route that was called, run it how it was called, and when it's your turn to block. And so, I mean, I'll throw this last one out here. I don't think Giovanni Gibson is a very big end-around guy, especially with smaller guys blocking. So at least we won't see that.
Yeah. We can't yet. Oh God, I still want to punch. I punch the air every time I think about that. How the hell do you run? How do you run an end-around or just a quick pass screen to a wide receiver of Jacob Jordan's caliber with Zion Ragin as your lead blocker? How do you do that? Who thinks to do that?
I believe it was the Rose Bowl against Georgia, where, if I remember correctly, Lincoln called an end around to Jordan Smallwood, and Smallwood got destroyed. And that night on the field, I vowed to hate the jet sweep end around concept with every fiber of my being. Specifically in short yardage situations, that's the one thing in football that will get me to throw my remote at the television. The one thing.
But
I hate that. I hate that concept, man. It's so ridiculous.
I think that the reason why they ran it against Georgia is because he scored a touchdown against Ohio State earlier in the year or the year before on the same exact play. So, man, the stuff that we remember. But like it just
trauma. It's trauma. It's trauma. Just say the trauma that we've gone through. It's okay. It's trauma.
I think the Smallwood one against Ohio State was kind of like the all right, we're not losing this game touchdown. So I mean, yeah, it's. I don't mind it with a fast guy. I don't mind it with a Deion Burks. A Deion Burks is a guy who I think can run through tackles. He's fast enough to run around tackles. But let's be honest, is if the guy's, hand towel hits Zion Reagan's, he might fall over. So let's not, let's if we're going to do something to him, let's have it be a stand up, throw it straight out and let him work one-on-one facing the receiver. And that's or send him deep like that. Those are the things I want to see with Reagan's until he bulks up a little bit.
You can't be calling those plays when some of your receivers could literally get pushed over by the wind. That's just my perspective on it. Guys are too small right now to be the lead blockers in those situations. But look, going to that question, the reason I bring it up, Power 4, FCS, whatever else, I watched a lot of tape the other day on Buklenko. I'm talking a lot of tape. I don't think he is remotely close to what Walter Rouse is. I think Walter Rouse was a guaranteed NFL draft pick before getting to Oklahoma. I struggle with this because on one hand, I don't think Buklenko was close to what Rouse was when he got to Norman from Stanford. But Buklenko is someone who's a little bit younger and he has some experience. So he's got a long road ahead of him. And that's why I think there's a debate, because on the flip side, Giovanni Gibson's got 2 seasons of eligibility as well. He is coming from the lower ranks, but the guy was first team all SWAC. I believe at one point in the season, he led all the SWAC in receiving yards, receptions, touchdown through the air. Guy was balling out. There's that level of variance between these two that I do think kind of illustrates how these labels between level of ball usually doesn't end up mattering at the end of the day. It's really about what you bring to the table. And I think there is a debate about what some of these guys coming to Norman are bringing to the table.
Yeah, that is the question. We're trying to figure out, are we bringing in dudes that's going to be productive? Because, truth be told, we go back to some of the other players we had that we brought in as transfers. You haven't seen a bunch of guys. Andrew Anthony was about to explode until the injury happened. And now I honestly have not seen anything on him since he went into the portal. That kind of hurts my feelings a little bit, but at the same time, makes sense. But we need to see dudes that have gotten production, and now we're talking to guys that have put up actual numbers. So I guess the question's going to be, who do you think we have in consideration now left at wide receiver? Because we've got 2 wide receivers that have transferred in. We're probably going to get 2 more. What are you feeling out there?
I think so. I know that they will take 3. I think the debate has been, do they take 4? Because if you think about it, they had 6 scholarship guys leave.
Yep.
They're bringing in 2 from the freshman ranks in Emmanuel Choice and Elijah Thomas. I know that they're going through all of the roster turnover and things of that nature with the cap and everything. It's a really weird situation. At receiver, you've got Isaiah Satania from Arkansas. I personally believe that one's in prime position to get done soon. If everything I have been told leading up to the visit is true, and then the visit goes the way I think it's going to go, I think Satania in Oklahoma makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Devontae Ross from Troy is someone who I've heard that they love, but he didn't make it to campus to my knowledge. I heard that a visit may be getting rescheduled. I don't know the latest, obviously, with everything that's been going on today on that front, but I know they like him a lot. You have Jerand Bradley floating out there, who I think could be a really nice role player.
That's what I'm curious about is him.
Yeah.
That's an Emmett Jones guy.
That is a Emmett Jones guy. And look, for what it's worth, man, having a connection to DeSoto High School in Texas isn't the worst thing either. And
it's not.
They love Jerand Bradley. I loved Jerand when he was at DeSoto. I just also the counter argument would be, does a player like Jerand become repetitive when you have Giovanni Gibson coming in and Jaden Gibson in place? I mean, you're talking two big outside threat type of wide receivers. I don't know. It might be a little bit of a skill set on skill set on skill set thing up for debate. There are other receivers out there, obviously, and they're going to have to navigate this thing effectively. But I think Satania makes the most sense. Ross feels like the wild card, and then Bradley supplemental to this point, depending on the way that everything else kind of shakes out. That's how I see it currently.
Yeah. Can we get Deuce Robinson? Can we get him at tight end, please?
I mean, he doesn't play tight end. He's pretty clearly a wide receiver. Who would you guys want? Like, Coop, who of the receiver group that's out there do y'all want? Because I know there's a lot of debate about the priorities. How do you want to fill up the rest of the receiver room?
Yeah. Satania is the one that I want to see pop next. I think that he is. He makes a ton of sense. Jaron Bradley was really big leaving out of Texas Tech, and that was a big pickup. He was a big portal entry. It's not as big anymore. So I wonder with bringing in Bradley is you got the two Jay Gibsons, assuming they're both healthy, right? Because we're going to get into that conversation too. Is like, all right, now with limited numbers, what are you going to do here? I don't think that the Branch brothers are in play, so I'm going to dismiss that piece. So whatever you hear on the Branch brothers, I mean, until you see us starting to go crazy on the internets, about Zion Branch, let's just pocket that for right now. But with Jaron Bradley, like we have a couple different guys that have that body type, so I'm wondering, do they go for somebody? Because I think we need a punt returner too. So which one of the guys gives you the best at punt returner? Because, man, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, I love Peyton Bowen and all, but like it got to one of those deals to where it was like hold your breath every single dang time that he was back there returning punts. And now that he's going to be, most likely the full-time starter at safety, let's get his butt out of there. Even though the room's deep, I just don't want to see somebody get hurt. Hashtag DeMarco Murray on special teams, God. So
you just like opening up old wounds, don't you? Both of y'all just like bring up old
he
stuff.
Does.
Just get the scab going here. Thanks, I appreciate it. No, for me, honestly, if I was it Isaiah Satania, I think he's probably the one. It feels like he would probably be the one. Dane Key is one I wish we would go after. I know it's an absurd thought. That dude balls every season. He's productive. He's been productive every season he's been in college football in the SEC. That's the type of player you really want because he's going to get your production regardless. He may pop off. And he's at 1 year left? We got the young pups that we need to get prepped and ready to go. Like, I would love to see Elijah Thomas get some run. Definitely Manny Choice is going to be your next Jaden Gibson to me, that he's going to scale up over time and by his third year pop off. I want to see more Zion Kearney. I need him to be able to have some space to do things. But Dane Key would be a nasty addition to this room.
I'll give you a little intel because we're having a good time and why not, right? I think the player that no one is talking about that I had a note on the other day at Sooners Illustrated I made a call to someone in the camp of Chris Hudson, formerly of Washington State, and their direct verbiage was, we know that Mateer is visiting Oklahoma this week. Chris wants to see what happens with that situation. And if Mateer goes to Oklahoma, if that deal gets done, the day that I had called the folks in Chris Hudson's camp, they were talking to Oklahoma a few hours prior to that call. And a visit, it felt like it at least could be something on the table. So Chris Hudson's not getting talked about at all. But man, coming out of that phone call, I was like, this could be another name that makes a lot of sense for them.
And you know what? Did we DM back and forth about that one? Because I feel like you're I feel like we already had this conversation. But yeah, it's Hudson is one that you immediately have a comfort factor, somebody from Washington State, somebody that Mateer is healthy with, healthy relationship with. So like you've got that built-in go-to. It doesn't mean he doesn't have to be, Megatron. He doesn't have to be, Jeremiah Smith or anything like that, because like Drake Stoops was the comfort blanket for Dylan Gabriel last year. And so if you can bring in Chris Hudson, that's a take all day long.
At that defensive side, Ethan O'Connor. Mm-hmm. I feel like we may as well go after some of these Washington State players. We've seen them be productive. Heck, why not? Right? Like if you've seen the dudes on tape work together with each other, why not bring a few of them with you? Shout out to Kurt Signetti over there at Indiana, bringing all them dudes from James Madison and then going 11-1 in the season. Like, who objects? Please object to us talking about that part, because we just watched a dude do it in the Big Ten. Now, it wasn't the best performance against Ohio State in the end. They couldn't close. They started off well, but still, 11-1, dudes from James Madison, most of his dudes coming from up there. Ethan Connor. He visited, went to Miami, but he's still doing visits.
Yep. Yeah. I think Colorado is in the mix there.
Yes, he's going to Colorado next. That's where he's headed.
And a few other schools out there. I believe UCLA was in the mix as well. And that's only notable because he was once committed to UCLA, but then some stuff happened late in his recruitment that kind of led to that falling through. And that's how he actually ended up at Washington State to begin with, was like a late pivot in his high school recruiting process. So I think the Bruins may be working on him as well. But I mean, Oklahoma was really confident whenever he was visiting, and then he goes to Miami to visit out there. I feel like he's still very realistic for them, but you got Miami and Colorado in the mix. Like those are two arguably you just don't want to see when you're going toe to toe with people for transfer guys. So
that makes sense. And it looks like Chris Hudson announces he's going to transfer to Arizona on his Instagram 40-something minutes ago.
Ooh, that's a good get for them, man. That's a good get for them.
That is a good get. Darn, we missed out on that one. That would have been a fun one. But speaking of Arizona, can we get Davis? I'm just going to throw that name out there. I just want to throw Takaria Davis out there. I know that he's probably going pro. It makes only sense for him to go to league, even though he entered the portal. Why can't we get him? That's who I want. Got a 6'4" corner in the SEC. Hey, you spend 1 year? This is the 1 year you can spend it. Find some millionaire that's got some money and say, hey, man, we need to hold 2.5. We're going to use a portion of that on Davis. We use the other portion on somebody on offensive line or whatever else you need. But I want him as corner in the SEC. He would be so much fun to watch playing in the SEC.
Yeah.
That's probably the wildest name of any of them I would actually want to talk about. Kevin, thanks for the $5. We be looking at all the studs at Washington State. They had that big offensive lineman that hit the portal?
Yeah, he's a freak show, dude. I mean, that guy is a monster. I don't want to say that they are a firm contender for him, but I also feel like saying they're not going to at least get in the mix would be unfair to the situation, if that makes sense. You know, with everything we know now, at least make a phone call. would be my stance on that.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that some of the money that, because I'm not going to even try to say his name, some of the money that he's going to be commanding, I mean, it's going to be quite a bit up there. Now, after this season, I know that everybody in this chat and everybody across the board says, "F it." I mean, if it's an extra $500,000 and it brings us 2 extra wins, let's go.
Do it.
Because I mean, that's it. And I promise you that's why that question that popped up earlier, like I heard that we started out with $17 million. Like, that's the thing about it is there's not really a budget there. So if a big time offensive lineman really came and said, "Hey, this is kind of what I want," and there was a couple of donor calls that needed to happen, I think defensive and offensive line are 2 places that the donors would, pony up a little bit extra money to.
I want to say real quick, man, Georgia Tech's Corey Robinson coming in on Thursday. That's
huge.
A big deal, folks. It's a big deal. I think they've got a real shot at him.
And I guess somebody had said that he deleted the that tweet. And then I know I kind of shared something behind the scenes with you guys. Like, I mean, don't be surprised if somebody says, "Hey, listen, don't really need a visit. Like, I'm in. Like, let's roll." So, and that's not just with him. That could be any of these guys.
I would like that. Can we just get some people to just go ahead and keep? Because if anything, that just shuts up the fan base and all the chatter online, which I've had to get myself offline specifically because people have been losing their minds about all of this process. And I get it in a way. It ain't easy. Not knowing. But at the same time, I would like to say this one thing before CK I ask you this last question and get you on to your evening. Real quick, though, everybody watching on the stream, thank y'all for pulling up, hit the like button and all of that jazz. But I need y'all to understand something. If we're tampering, you're not supposed to know that. Only stupid people would make sure that fans and people on the outside know that this stuff is happening. Why? Because if they get caught and the paper trail goes back, guess what happens? We get in trouble. And that's the one thing you don't want. So you got to move in silence. Like lasagna, like the G in lasagna. You got to just move in silence, people. CK, what do you feel like is the most important spot we need to go after going forward now that we're starting to see some of the snowball effect when it comes to this offensive line? I mean, the portal itself.
Yeah, no, I think, and I'll share my answer and then get out of here because my laptop may die at any moment. But
I figured.
I am always going to come from a place of you invest in the front 5. Because this is where I'm at with this. The receiver is a given. Like, they're going to get a bunch of pass catchers. And I feel like we kind of know who that's going to be. But if you're going to invest all this money into a quarterback, into an offensive coordinator, and some of these pass catchers, you've got to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to protect and let that offense flow. And it starts on the line of scrimmage. I have talked about Corey Robinson as someone who you're talking about one of the highest graded pass protectors in all of college football. And he's a 1-year rental. Yes. But not only is that the blindside protector potentially if you can get him for your extremely valuable quarterback. The other part of this too that I've kind of taken the stance on is like you get a guy like that, 1-year rental, his mentorship to younger players like Michael Fasusi, Logan Halland, that's impact beyond his years. You have the Washington State guy out there. You have Derek Simmons from Western Carolina. There's a lot of offensive line options, and there will be more in the portal. For me, going forward, now that you have your quarterback, you're filling out the rest of that offensive unit, I really believe that buying into the offensive line and establishing your line of scrimmage for this new-look offense is going to determine the way things the next season go. So, anyway, I'm going to get out of here because battery's low.
You're about to die.
But
appreciate you pulling up, man. Thank you
All
so
right,
much
fellas.
for joining us. We'll chop it up later.
It was fun, guys.
All right. We're going to wrap this bad boy up with a bow on it. Coop, what a day.
Yeah. And
what a day.
Not seeing anything else tonight, that's probably a big deal. But again, like just going back to the Chris Hudson, like, yeah, we didn't even know that he'd already, 40 minutes ago committed to Arizona. Like, let's, just pump the brakes again. If Mateer and him are still talking, and that's something that the staff wants Mateer to pursue, I think that's a conversation that still can happen. But yeah, I mean, this is exciting. I mean, this is what we were asking everybody for patience, right? And will we ever know all of the things that have gone on with this? I mean, this camp has kept everything quiet. And I'm talking about Oklahoma. Like, there has been sleight of hand. There has been everything, from flights trackers going to places with empty planes to to conversations going on. Like, that's the game that we now live in. And I think it changes again next year, but right now you got to feel much better because you have hope on the offensive side of the ball, and now we've got the proven concept for defense, and so it's let's see what Arbuckle and these guys can do, because do I believe that this offense is going to go out and throw up 42, 43 points a game? Again, I think it's way too early to say something like that, and it'd be foolhardy to even bring that in. But can this offense score 30 points a game? I think so. I mean, you bring in a bunch of new stuff. Now the offensive line's got to come through too, but man, this is exciting. We talk about this bowl game coming up too, and it's almost like, hey, listen, the practices are more important, but hopefully we'll have some more bowl game coverage or bowl practice coverage coming up, because I mean, what are we 9 days away from the bowl game too?
Oh man. We are almost there. We get to talk about that. We get to talk about football and everything else. But the beauty of it is now, Coop, we got ourselves a quarterback. We're going to sleep peacefully tonight. We are, and I want to put that on the screen. CK, we got to thank him again. Colin Kennedy, go check him out. Sooners Illustrated. He's always dropping the nuggets. If you're not subscribed, he's one of my faves. I love it. I always support the insiders because they grind their butts off to get this stuff done. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, rate us, review us, give us 5. And with that, me and Coop are out. We're going to get some rest. No stream on Sunday. We're going to enjoy the weekend off. I'm going to go take some time off for a few days. And then we'll be back strong after Christmas. Probably because Christmas is on a Wednesday. It is on a Wednesday.
A week from today.
It is a week from today. So probably won't stream on Christmas unless Coop is getting a break away from the kids.
Listen, Christmas night, I probably
could use a stream.
Yeah.
Could use a break.
All of our stuff's usually wrapped up by around noon or something like that. So typically it's just bourbon, barbecue, and relaxation, watching some TV in the afternoon on Christmas Day. But I'll probably be putting together Legos, Star Wars Legos, for most of the day on Christmas. But so yeah, I mean, we'll have a talk offline. But there's still more. There's still more to come, guys. So stay tuned and just sit back. I mean, at this point, it's what other pieces can we get? And I think that we're paying out money. It sounds like the package that we had for Mateer initially, we even gave him a little bit more. And so, I mean, it's this program's not broke. The donors are showing up, and we want to see what it's like when we are at our best, in the SEC, because that wasn't what we were able to put out on the field this year. So, just more exciting, and just keep on rolling.
Absolutely. All right. We'll let y'all know. Just keep your eyes open on the social medias. We'll have it posted on where we're going to be at. And we'll chop it up with y'all later. Peace. Good night.